Well, hello there and welcome. You are listening to the Kindness Matters podcast, and I am your host, Mike Rathbun. What is this podcast all about? It's about kindness. It's a pushback against everything negative that we see in the news and on social media today, and it's a way to highlight people, organizations that are simply striving to make their little corner of the world a little better place. If you want to join in on the conversation, feel free. Go ahead and follow us on all of your social media feeds. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're even on LinkedIn under Mike Rathbun. Check us out. And in the meantime, so sit back, relax, enjoy, and we'll get into the Kindness Matters podcast. Hey, hello there, and welcome to the show, everybody. I am so glad and so honored that you took the time to join us and listen in. I have an amazing guest for you today. Reminder, I do this on every show. If you hear something in this show that speaks to you, that is uplifting or inspirational or motivational, please make sure to share it with your family and friends, and make sure to follow us on all of our socials. They're in the show notes. And also, you know what? Give me a recommendation. Give me a rating, a review, anything, just so I know you're out there and listening. So let's talk about today, though, because my guest today is Jill Morrison. She is the founder, owner, all the things, head honcho, big cheese, main person of Be Memorable, which is a marketing firm.
Yes,
is that
sir.
right?
Yes.
And you spent the last decade working one-on-one with real estate agents and business owners and entrepreneurs, crafting personalized marketing plans, right?
Yes.
Now, were you doing that as with another organization, or was this all through Be Memorable?
Sure. Great question. So the first part of it, right after I graduated, I sold insurance for a little bit, and then I got into title insurance, and I marketed a lender as well. And during the time when I worked for the title company and the mortgage company, I was kind of like a gift with purchase. So meet with her, get to know us. She'll help with your marketing. Oh, yeah, by the way, we also have title services. Or, oh, yeah, by the way, we also have mortgage services. And so I kind of got to dabble in it and figure it out and try some things out and build up a little bit of experience before I launched Be Memorable.
I was briefly in real estate. My wife, we weren't married at the time, but we both worked for the same company. We got laid off. I had to find another job, so I took a job with a company called Mortgage Information Services, MIS.
Yeah.
Have you heard of them?
I have not.
Oh, good, because I think they may have gone out of business. No, and I must have BS'd really well to get that job because I had no experience in the mortgage industry, none whatsoever. But, they gave me a laptop and a car, and I got to go around.
What more do you need?
Right? And that was in 2005.
Okay.
And one of our biggest customers was Countrywide, and we all know what happened there.
Yeah.
So they said, yeah, this isn't working out at the end of 2005. But you know what? That worked out for the best because in 2006, my wife and I started our own company.
That's
and
right.
It's not mortgage related, but yeah, it was an experience. And then of course, 2008 came along, and
I was going to say probably a good time to get out of mortgages right before that.
Yes, exactly. There were blessings upon blessings with that whole thing.
Sometimes you don't see them until later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to you, because you're who. Now, talk to me a little bit before we talk about working with intergenerational coworkers and that sort of thing. Talk to me about Be Memorable. Where did that come from?
Yeah. So
because it's BEE. We should be clear.
Correct. Like the bumblebee.
Right.
And one of the things I liked the most, so I always knew if I were to start a company, I liked the bumblebee because for the longest time, when they would look at them, there was no reason why they should be able to fly. Like it does not aerodynamically make sense. They couldn't figure it out. Essentially, what they basically believed was that nobody told the bumblebee that she couldn't fly, and so she just figured it out, and that was it. And then they figured out later that, in fact, they can do it because they flap their wings in a different way, and it
Oh,
allows it to work for them. And so one of the things I liked the most about that was that they found a way to do something that was otherwise impossible by figuring out their own way of doing it. And so I kind of like that story behind it, that idea behind it, when in terms of marketing, in terms of businesses, in terms of anything, and like going
yeah.
after ideas. And then I just needed a word that worked with it. So I tried a lot of them. I tried be intentional, but I didn't want, see, this is where the marketing nerd comes out. I didn't want three vowels next to each other in
Oh,
any context because it looks weird. So I needed there to be a consonant after the E's. And then, so I tried a bunch of different ones until I could find one that hadn't been taken. And we landed on Be Memorable, which ironically works for marketing.
absolutely memorable. You want your customers to remember you or potential
Yes.
customers. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
And you help businesses find a way.
Exactly. Exactly. Figuring out how to do it on their budget, to run their business, to run their marketing, their sales, whatever it is, in a way that excites them. Because business
Yeah,
is tough
because
a lot of
it
the times, but it doesn't have to always be.
and you, the businesses that you work for, and I always had this problem with the cleaning business, right? And when we first started, we got our very first job. You're going to cringe when I say this, off of Craigslist,
Way to leverage it.
right? We had no money for marketing.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I shouldn't say our very first job. When we first started it, we sent out an email blast, and one of the people that we used to work with said, I need a home cleaner. Can you guys? So that was our actual first job. But
Sure.
one of the first ones from somebody that we had no idea, had never met,
Yeah.
came through Craigslist. And that was perfectly acceptable back then, especially if you were a small business and just starting out.
Absolutely. Yeah, because
To
it was supposed to just be like a bulletin board at a coffee shop. Like that was the initial premise of Craigslist, and then got a little weird.
Yeah, yeah, and nobody uses it now.
No, not really.
Not for
Facebook
getting
Marketplace
jobs
has really
and that
taken
kind of
over.
thing, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but, and it was hard. I remember um, going with, we tried once working with a local radio station, Hubbard Broadcasting here in the
Yeah.
Twin Cities,
Yeah.
on their radio show. And all we could afford was like little 30-second blip
Yeah.
um, on their streaming service because that
Okay.
was cheaper.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I wanted the morning show. I don't remember who was doing it at the time, but I wanted them to go, "Hey, try these guys."
Yeah.
But that would have required cleaning their house. And I
Nah.
joke. So, and you really find this kind of thing fulfilling. This is your calling, right?
Yeah, I love every bit of it. I love helping business owners, especially, figure out sales kind of has gone through like phases, right? So the salesman has gotten this like nasty connotation to it, when in reality, the sales department of most businesses are the people that are keeping the business alive. They're the
Oh,
ones
sure.
closest to the money. They're the ones that are bringing in the income that supports everybody else. Yet for whatever reason, it's the like job category that so few people want to go into. And so I think then they get caught up in their head and they don't want to sell to their friends and family. And so they don't know how to go about it. And instead, you just got to figure out a way to talk about what you're doing and how you enjoy doing it. And people want to support you. Your people want to help. They just don't know how sometimes.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was my downfall, I think, with the mortgage company because I was supposed to be selling services,
Yeah.
but I had no idea what I was selling. I had no experience in the mortgage industry. It was like,
I
and they did all kinds of stuff. They had their own title people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the fact is that most mortgage businesses already have their own inspectors, the ones they like to work with, their own title people. I didn't
Yeah.
know how to sell that. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Fortunately, you were in when it was like show a pulse, get a mortgage. So that was kind of a fun time to be in mortgages.
Right. Yeah. I just watched The Big Short the other day for the first time.
Yeah.
Isn't that nuts?
Yes. Yes, I started college and I went to school for economics and marketing. But the econ part, I started college in 2008. And so
Okay.
we were then watching videos that were talking about how subprime loans got sold and how this created the mess that it did. And I swear we watched the same video like 5 times. It was like they were trying to drill in what went wrong so we didn't do it again.
And you guys were watching it and happen in real time, really, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. And that was also on the heels of Enron. So we had a lot of business ethics classes too.
I'll bet. I'll bet. So let's talk about, you and I were talking when we chatted before the show
Yeah.
about how the workforce, how many different generations are currently working side by side right now?
So currently, for the first time in history, we have 5. So the silent generation, I know. The silent generation was born between 1925 and 1946. So they are on the tail end. And for some, it might be a hobby job. It might be something that just gets them out of the house. Or it could be for some, they don't make enough to offset what they're doing. And so they work part-time to help offset their goals and
Social,
their life. Yeah,
yeah, supplement Social Security, that type of thing.
exactly. So it's not like it's necessarily their career still, but they're still there. And then we've
Yeah.
got the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and then Gen Z, born between 1995 and 2012. They are our youngest ones in the workforce right now.
Wow. And that just seems like such a huge gap. I mean,
Yeah,
I know, well, my mom was silent generation. And
sure.
she passed at 85 years ago.
Yeah,
And when you say silent generation, I automatically think of her and I'm like, oh my God. But 46, yeah.
yeah.
So they're not ancient.
No.
I guess it depends on who you ask. But
Yeah, you asked.
you ask the Gen Zers and they'd probably say they were, but
Yes, yes. They also think 40 is ancient. So
exactly. So there you go. So is it difficult for all of these generations to work together?
Absolutely. I think that we always hear the tried and true is any generation before me is out of touch and any generation after me is clueless. And
Right.
that's been tried and true no matter what generation it is, plug and play. The ones after us don't have it as hard and the ones before us will never understand. And that's kind of how it's always been. And I think that part has always remained true. But we've got this weird dynamic now in the workforce where you have the silent generation who worked their entire career and retired without needing to use a computer for the most part.
Yeah.
Most of them, if they would have retired in the early 90s, they probably got away with most of their career without really having to utilize computers. And then on the flip side, we've got Gen Z, and some of the younger ones hardly remember a time where they weren't using a computer for everything. And for all of them, the computers existed for their entire lifetime.
Yeah. What is the generation that has never, is it?
It'll be Gen Alpha, this next one, where they will have never known a life without smartphones. Because Gen Z, the part of them, like the ones born in like 2008 through 10, they're also not going to know that. But the ones born in the 90s have a little bit. So
yeah, because my kids are both millennials.
Sure.
And, I think we got them their first cell phone when they were like 12.
Sure. Yeah.
Or thereabouts,
Yeah.
And the first cell phones, flip phones, you couldn't text on them, I don't think. Maybe you could. I'm not sure.
I have a jar, like a very strong memory of being scolded because it was 5 cents for every text message you received and 10 cents for every one you sent. And I was threatened within an inch of my life to do neither.
Yeah, exactly. I forgot about that one too. Yeah,
Yes.
you'd get the bill at every month, and there'd be the data usage, and it's like, what the?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, memories.
Uh-huh.
Oh God. Uh, Um, so in a business environment,
Yeah.
what are the biggest challenges? I mean, aside from what you just talked about with the competition between generations,
Sure.
what are the biggest challenges there?
I think that another part of it, so we've got the bookends, right? Where
Mhm.
silent generation to Gen Z and how markedly different their lives were. But then when you bring it in one ring closer and we're looking at baby boomers versus millennials, there's also tension there in where like baby boomers, the nature of the name, right? There were so many of them coming
Yeah,
into the school at the same time, applying for college at the same time, going into the job market at the same time, going after the same promotions. And as a result, they learned that you've got to show up early and you got to stay late and you got to work your rear end off to be able to earn that next promotion because somebody else is right there about to take it from you. And so
yeah,
you've got to like put in these extra hours. And so by survival, they became these workaholics and coined the phrase. And it really became like a badge of honor, like first one in the office, last one to leave. And then Gen X was like, I feel like there's got to be a better way than this. Like there's got to be more balance. And millennials, even more so. And so now this dynamic where baby boomers don't think they're working unless they see their eyeballs in the office, and millennials saying, why do I have to be here if I can be more productive at home? Or if I get the exact same amount of work done, why do I have to sit in my cube for an extra 4 hours? And so
right. Yeah.
and nobody's happy with it. And so I think for some managers, it's trying to figure out how to balance that to where you're empathizing with both sides, but trying to still have consistent um, standards for everybody. And that can be really difficult.
Was it Gen Xers who coined the term work-life balance?
Yes, they were the first of it, which also in turn got them to, they earned the first generation to be called slackers as a result.
By whom? Probably boomers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And silent generation. Yep.
Slackers.
Slackers.
But yeah, I was right there. I'm a boomer, um, and I remember doing that. Just you know, my day didn't start until 8, but if I wasn't in my seat at 7, working already, I felt like I wasn't contributing, or I might be
Yeah.
replaced.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we've also seen there was a little bit of a resurgence in that during the recession when everybody was just trying to get a job. But of
Yeah,
lately, there's been less and less of that. And this gig economy is making it so people have kind of piecemeal together other things. And they're not as worried about having somebody on their tail trying to take their job as they've been in the past. It changes
yeah,
everything.
they don't have that issue, and plus, there's not as many of them, right?
Right. Exactly. By nature, right? Baby boomers. So many. And there's a lot of millennials, but I think it's different, right?
Yeah,
You're also kind of stepping into baby boomer jobs. So as boomers leave, there's more opportunities.
sure, sure. So, have you got any hints or tips or tricks for us on maybe different ways that the different generations can relate to each other better,
Yeah.
maybe?
Yeah. So, as far as like trying to figure out how to find common ground, right? And I think that's where like the empathy and the kindness comes from is understanding a little bit more of why they might be thinking the way they are. So, for example, just to continue on where we just said with boomers. So, if we understand that they're conditioned to believe that the more time you spend in the office, that is a mark of a good employee because of how they were raised, what they
Sure.
saw, the competition they experienced. Then as a later generation, you can take a step back and say, oh, okay, I can see that. I can see where that was for you. On the flip side, for some, they say, I don't want that type of life because that's what my parents did. They were gone all day, maybe they didn't make it to sporting events, maybe they didn't see their parents, and they're like, if that's what, I don't want that for my life because that's what I saw my parents do. And so I think that then on the flip side, for boomers to then understand, all right, I can see that there's an opportunity to work more efficiently, maybe, and we all
Right.
benefit from not spending as much time in the office. And I think
Yeah.
that as far as like crossovers, one of the ones that just excites me more than anything is when we look at the crossover between the silent generation and Gen Z. Because
Oh,
silent generation, they were born and raised and really going into adolescence, seeing a lot coming out of the Great Depression. And so what they saw a lot of is this waste not, want not, reuse things, maximize how long you fix it instead of replacing it, fix it so that it lasts, find a way to reuse things. And then you watch as the pendulum swung the other way, right, into pretty extreme consumerism for a while. And now
yeah.
it's kind of correcting back. And Gen Z is excited by buying thrift clothing and reusing different things and finding a way to make things last and not just immediately replacing it. And I think that there's a cool way for those generations to really get to vibe more than you would think, finding common ground in just our silent generation has the experience of how to make stuff work like that, and Gen Z has the desire to learn about it. And so I think that there's a fun dynamic there, and we always get so caught up in the technology gap that we forget there's other stuff. And so I think that
Yeah.
when you're looking to get along, like understand other generations, look for the strengths in how they were, like what they came from. If boomers were working all the time, how did they also had families? How did they manage it? What would they have wanted to do differently? And then asking those questions and learning from other people instead of just like saying it's wrong. That's not how I would do it. It's wrong. Because that doesn't, what does that help?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Um, I can just hear a Gen Xer going, if I have to hear one more time how you had to walk uphill both ways to school,
Seriously. In the snow. Yes.
up to here.
I won't do it.
And I think, is that necessarily a generational thing? Because I think every generation says, I don't want to be like.
Yep.
My dad was greatest generation. And, he was very much a kids should be seen and not heard kind of
Sure.
guy.
Yeah.
And I swore I would never be a parent like him. I'm too nervous to ask my kid if I turned out that way, but
We don't ask questions we don't want to know the answers to.
exactly, no. We don't need to go there.
No.
But is that just, it would be interesting to see, well, millennials are parents now.
Yep.
And even some
Gen X or Gen
Xers.
Z.
Gen Zs aren't parents now.
Some, they'd be turning 30. The older
Gen
end of
Z?
it, yeah.
Oh my God. That seems great.
Yeah.
Okay. Xers are becoming grandparents now.
Crazy. Yes. Guess we're accepting that at this time.
So it'd be interesting to see if they were like, I'm not going to raise my kids like my boomer father or mother or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a whole
But yeah,
other layer.
just empathies and oh, I'm going to pull out a Ted Lasso reference.
Let it
Be
rain.
curious, not judgmental.
Yes. Come from curiosity. Start there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And I mean, and because we all have to work together, right? When you're part of a company, you're part of a team.
Yep.
And wouldn't it make your work life so much better if instead of talking about how that millennial didn't come into work today because they had something else to do and you know nothing about it, you have no idea, you just know they're not there,
Yep.
Maybe put that aside and realize that, there was a reason and a good reason.
Yeah. And to also try and like find other ways of tracking things too. Maybe if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, well, they're never here, or they feel distracted when they are. Well, what are they lagging on the work they're completing or not? And
Right.
I think that that's where too, for boomers, sometimes it's okay, take a breath. Like, are they getting done what they're supposed to get done? And sometimes more than great. If not, then absolutely
Yeah.
we have other conversations. But first, like, we just got to do the job you're hired to do. And then you can get freedom.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I wonder how is because I'm sure you'll find at some point let's say a millennial in a supervisor role over a boomer.
Sure. Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. So that becomes a little different as far as training goes. Because I like with Gen X and millennials, but Gen X especially, they were the last generation to play outside, right? And so they would just like make
So
the
I've heard.
best out of, yes, they would make the best out of whatever they had to play with, right? Because they couldn't go back inside, they can't go play video games, like that's it. And
Right.
so they kind of came up with this like, I'll figure it out. And then for millennials, with the advent of technology and that coming into the schools and everything speeding up, efficiency. So there were millennials then are always looking for a more efficient way to do things.
Oh.
And so on both of them, they're both like, I don't want you to tell me what to do. I just tell me the end goal and I'll figure out how to do it. And then on the flip side, if they're managing a baby boomer who for the majority of their school life, home life, and work life, this is how we do it. These are the standard operating procedures. This is what it looks like to advance. If they come into a situation where it's like, these are the targets, figure it out, they might shut down a little bit
I
because
see
they've
like
been
sparks
conditioned.
coming out of our ears.
Yeah, because they've been conditioned to believe that there's got to be a right way to do it, and I want to do it the right way. So I think that in a millennial or Gen X situation, when you're managing somebody who might be a baby boomer, to be aware of that and maybe ask if they would like more steps to figure it out,
Yeah.
just so that they can like acclimate faster and not feel like they're failing.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, that's so fun. I never, and when we had a few employees with the cleaning business,
Yeah.
and when you said that, I was a typical boomer boss. You do it this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, and then double check
Yeah.
and maybe would I have been thought of as a better boss if I had been a little bit more flexible? Maybe.
Who knows though with cleaning? Like there are also for your business there were standards that
Right.
people were buying and wanting.
Right.
So it's hard to
Yeah, no,
motivate
but
a
I
change
mean,
to clean standard
you
without
click.
doing it your way, but we don't know.
So for a millennial, I would have just said, clean it.
This is what I want it to look like when you're done. Thank you.
Picture out of a magazine or something of a
Yes.
sparkling clean bathroom. Right.
Yes.
Yep. That's fantastic. I so much appreciate your insight, Jill. This is great information. I think um, anybody who's listening, who's in an environment where you have other intergenerational coworkers, I hope this helps you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I have to ask,
Yes.
which podcast, what podcast am I? Because I know
My
you had a
goal of
goal for this
10.
year.
Yes, you're number 2. Yes.
Yes, I'm number 2. Okay, throwback.
Yeah.
We try harder. Back when I was growing up,
Yeah.
Hertz and Avis, 2 car rental companies, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And Hertz, or one of them would always say, we're the top ranked. And then the other one started an ad campaign that said, we try harder.
I love that. I love
Isn't that
every
great?
part of that. That's the advertising marketing nerd in me loves every bit of that. That's amazing.
It was a lot of fun. You can look it up. I'm sure it's in Wikipedia or Google or something. But
Absolutely.
thank you so much for taking the
Thank you.
time to share with me today, Jill. I really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
I so look forward. We will have your website in the
Yes.
show notes. There will be a
Yep.
link to it, and we will link to you on LinkedIn if anybody wants to connect with Jill and
Yes.
and make a better
Yep. I have
make.
extended courses where we could talk about working with different generations within your workplace, as like if you run an HR or if you run an HR team, or if you work with people that like business to business clients who'd like to learn how to work with other generations more seamlessly. I have a couple classes on that.
Fantastic. Check it out, everybody. Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
time, Jill. Have a great
Thanks, Mike.
weekend.
Thank you so much. You too.
I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode with my guest, Jill Morrison from Be Memorable. I hope you're able to take something positive from the time you spent with us. Maybe you'll be inspired, maybe you'll be motivated, maybe you'll be moved. If you experienced any of those positive feelings, please consider sharing this podcast with your friends and family. I'm always striving to offer you a better podcast, so give me some feedback. Let me know how you think I'm doing. Drop me an email. Leave me a message on my socials. It would mean the world. Also, feel free to follow us on our socials like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. This podcast is part of the Mayday Media Network. If you have an idea for a podcast and need some production assistance, or have a podcast and are looking for a supportive network to join, check out MaydayMediaNetwork.com and check out the many different shows like Afrocentric, Spoil My Movie, Generation Mixtape, In a Pickle Radio Show, Wake Up and Dream with D. Anthony Palin, Stacks O'Pax, and The Time Pals. We'll be back again next week with a new episode, and we would be honored if you would join us. You've been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun. Have a fantastic week.